Ashley, upstairs. Okay, it's game time.
Resident Evil 4 is a game of two halves. One half is a long-ass survival horror game, the longest Resident Evil campaign in the history of the franchise. One that gradually and perfectly escalates into one of the most satisfying and bombastic conclusions in all of video games. The other half is the side content. This half of the game says to hell with the horror and decides to just be a full-on action game, unhinged and not even trying to be even remotely grounded at this point. It is just full-on arcade silliness and dumb fun. A bit of the tension still lingers simply because of how intense the gameplay loop itself inherently is. The whole loop of stop, aim, shoot, run, kick, knife, rinse, and repeat is still the name of the game here, it's just everything else that's been changed gives the experience a whole different flavor. Before we begin, if you're enjoying the video, be sure to check out part 1 of this review next, where I cover the main campaign in microscopic detail. This is part 2 of that review, a sort of a companion piece in which I will be briefly covering and only covering the extra content. You can find the video link to part 1 in the description box below. And with that out of the way, let the games begin. Starting with the biggest change, the music and the atmosphere is the polar opposite of what is found in the main campaign. The bonus mode that tonally resembles the main storyline the closest, although not really, is Separate Ways, so let's start with that one. This is a pretty beefy side story starring the femme fatale, Ada Wong. It clocks in at about a fraction of the time required to complete the main story, but it's quite lengthy in comparison to side content from games of nowadays. Separate Ways tells the story of Ada's spy mission happening in parallel to Leon's rescue mission, revealing the domino effect consequences of her actions that end up getting Leon into dire straits and both metaphorically and literally saved by the bell. However, this expansion is not actually all that creepy compared to the main storyline. Some of the cutscenes retain the creepy music purely because of the overlap with the main story, because some of the cutscenes are pulled straight out of Leon's campaign. This happens over and over in all 5 chapters, but the tone conveyed in almost every gameplay section is straight up action and nothing more than that. Again, same as the cutscenes, the sparse moments of gameplay that do hint at a creepy atmosphere only occur when creepy locations from Leon's story are conveniently reused. It doesn't try to slowly build up towards anything unsettling, it introduces no new enemy types, and the combat music is faster paced and rather frenetic instead of frantic. This bonus mode was not part of the game when it originally released on the GameCube, and funnily enough, this omission will carry over to the Resident Evil 4 remake when that releases in a few days. Separate Ways was first introduced in the PlayStation 2 port, a first port of many more to come. Shinji Mikami was not in favor of a downgraded port, or any other port for that matter, and so naturally this expansion was made under a different director, Kuniomi Matsushita. You can definitely feel like this was directed by someone else. The quality of the expansion is not on par with the main game, and it just feels made with a different tone in mind, even if it puts an effort to respect the original tone to a certain degree. Somehow, it still complements the main story, even if it is undoubtedly inferior. I will say right off the bat that most of the flaws are just little blemishes that, when piled up, create a compounding effect. The one true glaring flaw that trumps every other one is, for better or worse, something related to time and hardware limitations. This expansion was first developed with the PlayStation 2 in mind, a console with significantly less power than the GameCube. Because of this limitation, pre-rendered cutscenes were used instead for the Separate Ways storyline. Back in those days, they suited the television screens and looked pretty damn good for a PlayStation 2 title, I'll tell you that. If you think the graphics of this port were atrocious, wait till I tell you this was easily one of the best looking games on that system. That being said, the cutscenes definitely don't hold up on the massive Full HD and 4K televisions of nowadays. The PS2 port had to downgrade all of the real-time cutscenes that were present on the GameCube, including all of Leon's storyline. But because those real-time cutscenes existed prior to the ports that followed, the remasters were able to salvage and preserve those cutscenes. Consequentially, the Separate Ways never had real-time cutscenes to begin with, which is why, unless you're watching this video on a smartphone, you'd think this footage was recorded on a potato.
Little rough, don't you think?
Separate Ways features the exact gameplay loop from the original campaign. Ada's starting village sequence is a bit more challenging than Leon's, thanks to a rather pathetic weapon loadout, but the campaign does introduce a few never-before-seen weapons and gadgets, which is pretty cool. The village sequence starts you off with a blacktail handgun and a brand new pump-action shotgun. This one has an extra grip instead of a stock. The sound has a mighty roar like all the other shotguns, and yet it's nowhere near as powerful as it sounds. It also aims at the hip just like the striker, which makes it unreliable for headshots. The third chapter unlocks another cool new weapon, and that is the crossbow. This one's a little expensive to invest in, and ammo is generally scarce, but it can be devastating when used correctly. The arrows are actually explosive, making it behave a lot closer to a mine thrower than an actual crossbow. I guess this is where the idea of a hybrid crossbow for the remake came from. The most disappointing thing about the gameplay in Separate Ways is that you cannot upgrade your weapons at all. The weapons stay consistently weak from beginning to end, and the lack of upgrades makes replays a lot less satisfying than the main campaign. But it does have a cool few tricks up its sleeve to make it stand out. The grappling hook is by far the most interesting addition, serving as a contextual button that introduces verticality to combat, platforming, and exploration. It adds a new layer to traversal and opens up locations that were inaccessible in the main campaign. Ada is also a very different character compared to Leon. She's lighter, faster, cockier, and operates more stylishly. For a spy running around in high heels and little to no tactical gear, she's super acrobatic and fearless. Her time at the island escalates into a set piece that's even more action-packed than ever before. It's pure insanity, and it feels only tolerable when isolated from the main campaign, but I genuinely don't like how it might have actually did influence the heavy emphasis on turret sections in Resident Evil 5 and even Resident Evil 6. I also wish the campaign as a whole was a little more consistent. Each chapter magically jumps to a different location without explaining how Ada got there. I guess during the pitch meeting, when someone asked the questions that I'm asking right now, the writers just said because plot armor and just called it a day. All in all, Separate Ways is still an awesome side story featuring cool new locations and some extra boss fights that take somewhat of a different direction, particularly when it comes to the main villain Osmond Sadler. It even fleshes out some of the story and lore. A collection of cutscenes called Ada's Report plays out after each chapter, expanding a bit on the details of her mission, her mysterious relationship with Leon Kennedy, and her even more bizarre affiliation with Luis Serra. Completing this mode will unlock Leon and Ashley's gangster and medieval outfit combo. That alone is worth playing through it at least once. It's a memorable distraction, and there's enough potential here to turn Ada's story into a full A and B scenario like they did with Leon and Claire in Resident Evil 2. I am extremely curious to see what they could do with it in the remake. Up next is the bonus mode Assignment Ada, starring, you guessed it, Ada's assignment. In this mode, Ada has to run around the island, again, shooting her way through more or less the same exact enemies that Leon did, but with the intent of searching and retrieving 5 samples of the Las Plagas parasite as per Albert Wesker's request. This is a little different compared to Separate Ways, as it starts right off the bat with an extensive weapon loadout and a huge difficulty spike. Ironically, Ada wears much better tactical gear in this mode compared to the red dress she is seen wearing throughout the entire story. It makes no sense from a pragmatic standpoint, but it does make sense from a branding point of view, I guess. The red dress is way more iconic. There's not much else to say about this mode. It's pretty short, the shortest bit of side content in fact, but it's alright. On the bright side, completing this mode unlocks the Chicago Typewriter, the most boss weapon in Resident Evil 4. Last but not least, we have what everyone loves the most about Resident Evil 4's side content, the Mercenaries Mode. Mercenaries Mode was introduced in the original Resident Evil 3 back in 1999, but it was fleshed out significantly in its return to Resident Evil 4. The name of the game here is to kill as many enemies as fast as possible under a time limit. A combo meter starts accumulating when you kill several enemies in a row, similar to a combo or a style meter in character action games. The bigger the kill combos get, the higher the score gets. When you score enough points, you start to unlock all of the playable characters. You only start out with Leon at first, but you can choose between 4 different arenas. You have the village, the castle, the island, and an extra 4th level that is not present in any of the campaigns. This is the infamous Waterworld level, not to be confused with the Water Room area, another infamous level from Leon's campaign. In total, there are 5 playable characters in Mercenaries: Leon, Ada, Wesker, Hunk, and Krauser. Leon is by far the most difficult character to score points with, thanks to a lackluster loadout consisting of merely a blacktail pistol and the riot shotgun. The loadout lacks both the firepower and the firing speed of other characters. It's always a nail-biting experience trying to clear out the water world or the castle as Leon. Usually it does not end well. Well, besides the free haircut. Ada Wong stands a better chance against the hordes, but not by much. Her loadout is the saving grace, equipping her with a Punisher that's great for crowd control and shielded enemies, the insanely versatile TMP, and the awesome semi-auto rifle. When it comes to the whole roster, Leon and Ada are pretty much the most basic of characters. It is the other 3 where the real party gets started. Fan favorite Albert Wesker makes an appearance as a playable character in Mercenaries Mode. His loadout consists of a silent silver ghost capable of insane critical hit damage, a semi-auto rifle, and a killer 7. If that loadout wasn't already overkill by itself, Wesker is also freakishly strong thanks to his genetics and the prototype virus he carries in his body, giving him superhuman powers and overpowered melee moves. Next up, we have the Darth Vader equivalent of Resident Evil, and that is Hunk. This guy is the most high-risk, high-reward character in the roster. He is only equipped with a TMP and some grenades. At first it seems like a serious disadvantage, but the TMP is actually the most versatile weapon in the game, and Hunk has one crazy good advantage: his neckbreaker move. If you pair both the easy headshots of the TMP and the stagger of the grenades with this insta-kill move, you can rank up insanely high scores in no time. And last but not least, we have Jack Krauser, the most unique character on this list. Krauser is surprisingly both the quickest on his feet and the tankiest of the bunch. He can withstand a ton of damage before he goes down, and he puts up one hell of a fight as well. His loadout consists of only a bow and some flash grenades, which on the surface seems like a pretty bad hand to be dealt with, considering how slow and inaccurate the bow can be at times, but worry not, because this Jack's got an ace in the hole. For starters, Krauser's melee move is a double roundhouse kick that is twice as devastating as Leon's, and unlike any other character in the roster, he has a unique special ability that inflicts AoE damage. This is Krauser's Plaga's enhanced arm, and it is stupidly overpowered. It doesn't just kill everyone and everything caught in its way, it destroys them. And on that catastrophic note, it's time to wrap things up. Although it's not as replayable as the raid mode introduced in the Revelations games, or even as fun as the co-op iterations of later installments, Resident Evil 4's Mercenaries Mode is still an absolute blast from start to finish. The awesome gameplay loop combined with the stress of a time limit and a score counter makes it extremely addictive and easy to hop in and out of, and obtaining 5 stars on all levels with all 5 characters unlocks the hand cannon. It's not my favorite weapon, but it's by far the most satisfying weapon I've ever unlocked in a video game. Resident Evil 4's side content is, simply put, legendary. It adds even further replay value to a campaign that is already endlessly replayable. This game hardly needed any more reasons to keep players coming back, but all of the extra content sure makes it easy to return over and over and over. You just don't see this in games anymore. This might be the end of the road for the original Resident Evil 4, and if that's to be the case, then thank you for everything, OGRE4. Thanks for all the good times, and for the endless joy you've given to so many Resident Evil fans. You truly have been one hell of a game.
Let's leave it at that.
And with that, the Raven draws to a conclusion. If you enjoyed the video and would like to be notified when my review of the remake goes live, be sure to subscribe and be like Ada Wong. Ring the bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.